Hey, my friends, welcome back to the show. I got another guest for you. This one is going to be personal and exciting and maybe even a little dynamic. We're going to get into the mystery of losing 100 pounds and keeping it off. It kind of is a mystery, right? It's like all the diets, all the things. Someone was pitching me in Instagram this week to get these products to lose 50 pounds. And so it's like, it's the never ending mystery about weight loss. So we are going to talk about Jenn's experience, our time together, and what she is doing in the world. So Jenn, you want me to introduce you, or you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'll introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Balcom. I'm an integrative mind body coach. I just finished coach training. I was a certified low life coach before that, but I ended up coming into the integrative mind body coaching sort of on purpose. And yeah, I've lost 100 pounds. I don't even know where you want me to start. You want me to start way back at baby Jenn? Because I have been overweight or obese since the age of 4. Like when I was 4, my parents split up and filed for divorce. And my dad moved out, and it's almost like somebody put an air hose into my mouth and pumped me full of air. Like that is when I remember my mom trying to restrict my eating, like maybe, no, you don't need that, or you don't need a second bowl of cereal or whatever. My parents ended up getting back together, but regardless, that experience was still there. And then I think that pattern of emotional eating just stayed with me my entire life.
So from the age of 4 so did you go through most of life dieting? Like when your mom was, that is dieting, right? Kind of the restricting and the warning, and what happens at the doctor's office?
I went through, I don't know that I always was dieting, but I was always very conscious of my weight. I think, yeah, and in high school, I was always trying to watch it. I always felt like my relationship, I didn't date a whole lot. So I always thought that it had to do with my weight. I mean, there was always a self-esteem, um, shame, guilt, which would then drive me to eat. And a lot of it was, I don't want to, I don't know. Yeah. Just
How,
not a healthy relationship with food at all,
okay,
or my
so
body.
if we were to just like dive in as if we were just like telling the story from how you perceived it, then how would you have described yourself? Or were you just like the chunky kid? Were you always like, if the Jenn that was the narrator that was watching it, right? That was like, how was she identifying this child, this pre-adult, this teenager?
She definitely the chunky one. And in 8th grade, I the summer before going into high school, I went on a diet and I lost a bunch of weight. And then by the end of high school, it was back on. I there's always kind of the pressure to be I kind of saw myself as the fat, funny, fun person.
All right. And then came
Uh,
adulthood.
Still fluctuating up and down in my weight. Then I had then I had a child, got married, and after my pregnancy, I gained a whole lot of weight then, and then my marriage sort of imploded. Um, and then I got married again and thought that was going to fix it, and it didn't. It was just, still married to the second person, but it took work. What happened is my second marriage, I got married 2 years in, it all imploded. He didn't want to be married anymore. Our marriage was, I hated myself. I was drinking a lot. I was eating a lot. I got up to my highest weight, which was 245 pounds. I was absolutely miserable. And I just decided, this was around age 45, that I was going to change it. So, I just decided that I was going to change it. And so I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like because I had been on every diet known to man. I pretty much a lifetime member was of Weight Watchers. I'd done keto and intermittent fast, like everything I'd done it, and nothing had been sustainable. Like I couldn't keep it off. I could do okay for a while. And the other thing is like I'm also before my son was born, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. It wasn't gestational. I actually got pregnant, I think, because of my diabetes, because I found out I was diabetic and they put me on metformin. And I had been unable to get pregnant for 7 years, never being on birth control. And I suddenly got pregnant. And then I found out later that metformin is one of the diabetes drugs that they give people for first line infertility issues. So anyway, found out I was pregnant. I kind of lost my train of thought.
Or we're just kind of tracking for the audience that's listening, I think all of us can relate to, even if it's just 5 pounds, that we're going to this like change or to this process, to this frame, we're going to this thing, right? We have this new thing to focus on, and then we get that result, but then it comes back. And that's what I hear you saying. The lifetime at Weight Watchers, the intermittent fasting, keto, like all of the things that you tried worked. I think we can all agree that it works.
Everything works.
All diets work.
It all works. The problem is that it's not about the food. Number one, it's never about the food and what you're eating. And so if whatever you're doing, if you're not willing to sustain that forever, then chances are it's going to come back. Or if you're eating for emotional reasons, unless you sort of process the emotions that you're feeling, it's just gonna come back. So I was always trying to control the food or control myself around the food, and it just didn't work.
So what you just said is like the diet that you choose, if you're not going to continue doing that, it's going to come back. Because what I've experienced, and I hear from clients also, I'm just going to do this until I get this off. And then I'm going to just eat like a normal person. That's the theme, right? Even the injections, because already have so many people doing these shots right now, and looking great. And so we can agree that it all worked. All the diets work to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
So I see you smirking. Do you want to talk about what I just said?
Well, I mean, they're all going to work. But it's just, I mean, why not do what you think why not do it in a way that's sustainable? I think the problem is that we start a diet. We just want the weight off now. We do all these things, we're willing to do all these things to get the weight off. And then when the weight comes off, we're not willing to do them anymore. If we weren't in such a hurry to get the weight off, it would be able to stay off because we could eat like a normal person.
Okay. Hold on. I want to ask a question to anyone who's listening to this to get a response from it. If someone told you exactly what to eat and when to eat it in order to get off 50 pounds, 60 pounds, 80 pounds, 100 pounds, like if someone said, this is all you have to do, I wonder what the percentage is that would do it. I think it's a very high percentage when it's to get to the number, like the sheer desperation of wanting to finally figure it out. So I'm saying that in agreement with, I think we all want the magic pill. We are humans. We want the Band-Aid. We want the wubby. We want the cuddling. We want the comfort. We want to know. The mind wants to know. And so we
want someone else to tell us what to do, because we want something outside of us to tell us exactly what to eat, exactly what not to eat. And it's not that we don't need support, we do, but it really doesn't necessarily come from
how we would normally eat according to what we
well like. I mean, I just don't think that each one of us is entirely different about what would work for us or not work for us. I do think that sugar and flour, for me, that was what I ended up doing. I ended up giving up flour and sugar. And I now eat some flour and sugar. But that's initially what I started
process, right?
and I think anyone can benefit from that. But I don't know that go ahead. Was there a question? I'm not sure that that's sustainable forever. And maybe it largely is. But I also feel like some of the foods that we eat cause us to have more cravings. Like I know for me personally, when I eat a lot of sugar, I then crave a lot of sugar. And then you get in these patterns where you have these food noise, you don't trust yourself because you don't know if you can stop. I mean, there's research that shows like sometimes when you're eating those things, your ability to feel full stops. I think that's why so many people are interested in the shots that are coming out now for people for diabetes and for weight loss. It's because part of what those medications supposedly do is cut down on the food noise. And we all have food noise. Like my whole life, food can talk to me. I don't care if I hide it in the basement, in the bottom of the freezer, I'm going to know that it's there and it's going to say, come eat me, come eat me.
Funny story. This morning, my husband, there's something like attacking his little animals in the yard. And so he went get this electrical fence and, put it around it so it would stop, killing the animals. And he, like in the evening, he's like, man, some good M&Ms. Hey, you don't have something you can bake? Like he's doing this. And I was like, get that little fence thing that works so well and put it around your little snacks. Yeah. So there's some pain attached to it. Like that little shock collar. Anyway,
Yep.
Okay, guys, I want to make sure that you get value from this call. So listen, you figured it out. It worked. You took off 100 pounds and have sustained it. You eat like a normal person. You live like a normal person. You are not dieting. But there's a gap in between you figuring it out and where you are today. That has to do with our work together, the mind-body coaching, because you already went through coach training, you already lost your weight, you were already in the position, you were already a coach, but something was missing because the weight was off.
The weight was off. I had just started. So, it was, the weight was off and I had just started my maintenance of it. And one, I was worried it was going to come back. Like I had still had my fat clothes in containers. I say fat clothes, but my heavier weight clothes in totes in the basement, scared to like give them away. But I knew that I had been able to lose the weight by changing. Like I was a certified life coach. I knew that mindset was important. I knew about the think, feel, do cycle. You think something, which creates feeling, which causes you to behave a certain way. I knew all of that. But what I was really upset about was that I was still having diabetic blood sugars. Like when I lost my weight, I went off my insulin. I was taking 4 shots of insulin a day. I went off blood pressure. I went off a cholesterol pill. I was even to go off my antidepressant. I was taking a water pill. I was taking all kinds of stuff. I went off all of it, but I still I didn't have non-diabetic blood sugars all the time. And I was ticked because I had done all this work and my whole life I've been told lose weight, and it will resolve your diabetes. You can put it in remission or whatever. So I found your podcast and I was listening. And in 2021, at the latter part of 2021, I joined Self-Healing Masters. So in that program is when I remember I introduced myself in the Facebook group and I said, I'm here because I've lost this weight, but I want to put my diabetes in remission. And you said on Facebook, buckle up, Buttercup, is what you said. And I didn't even remotely have an idea what I was in for. But I will say that learning the work in Self-Healing Masters, learning to be the punchline approach, learning to be present, learning to unveil and navigate, to shift through emotional processing, made a huge difference for me. And that's when I knew I wanted to go to coach training, because I feel like the key for me is I've done all this work. I've changed my relationship with food. I changed the way I eat. But I feel like the missing piece for me still, and I'm still doing this work, is doing the emotional processing of my emotions as they come up and moving through those and getting through the discomfort so I can reach my goal. I believe that, and as I've been in self-healing masters, and it's a couple of years later, my sugars continue to go down. I mean, I have periods of time when they're completely in normal range, but when I'm not getting present, when I'm not unveiling, like one of the things that coach training lacks as a coach, when you're thinking about the think, feel, do cycle, is that yes, you can change your thoughts, but number one, sometimes we have thoughts that we think over and over and over again, and those are beliefs that are like stored deep inside. Number one. Number two, we can't shift a thought if we're not conscious of it. And sometimes we're not conscious. It's a subconscious thought. We're not aware. So that present piece of like getting present with yourself, grounding yourself, meditation, movement, whatever it is that, or tapping. I do a lot of tapping to get you present so you can unveil it and see what it is, like, so that you can shift it. Like if I want to go to the grocery store, I have to, like, if I'm setting my GPS in my car, I can't get to the grocery store, even with the GPS, unless I know where I am in this moment. Like to get from here to there, I have to know where I am here. And I think that's the beauty of the punchline approach, because you have to really be present and have a clear, and be really honest with yourself about where you are to get somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. So just want to clarify what you're saying, because someone who's listening might not know what the punchline approach is or what the integrative mind body coach training is. So what she's saying is, in mindset coaching, we understand and become aware of our thoughts. And there's also this, what I call bypassing, which is, well, I'm just going to change the thought. And that is an incomplete process. And so when we were talking about the punchline approach, or what she's saying, like the unveil or the identifying and then the navigating, that's the actual how-to that people are looking for. The work is not in changing the thought if it's actually a belief, because you don't approach thoughts and beliefs in the same way. One is subconscious and one is conscious. I remember getting coaching and they were like, yeah, well, it's just your thought. And I'm like, bitch, I told you, I know it's my thought. Like, why are we having this discussion? I was angry. I mean, it was like I wanted to cuss out every person who kept reminding me that it was my thoughts. And I'm like, I know, I'm aware of it. I told you what it was. Like, I want to work with what I'm not seeing or what's not happening. Because it's like this cycle that is so annoying when the coach or the practitioner kind of keeps you in the loop and makes it a problem. It's like, that is not the problem. Right? Is that what you came to recognize? I'm telling my story now. Or
well, no, absolutely. Like, you can have a thought and you can know you don't want to keep that thought, but you can't just write down a new one and suddenly believe it. Right.
But it is what we're taught.
It is what we're taught. And it's the reason once I joined Self-Healing Masters and saw how it was changing, then I decided that I wanted to be in coach training. And interestingly enough, I lost 15 pounds during coach training, and I wasn't even trying. Now, granted, I was trying to build muscle, and I hired a coach to help me build strength. But that wasn't, I really honestly believe that when you do this work and you are processing and shifting and also changing your habits, it almost just sort of goes.
The outer work matches the inner work without trying. It's how I'm interpreting that.
And if somebody had told me that when I was losing weight, it probably would have ticked me off.
Kind of like me when someone's telling me that it's just a thought. I'm like,
I come from a long line of diabetics. My dad was a diabetic, and part of the reason that I wanted to be healthier anyway was watching his struggle. Like when he passed during the pandemic, he was on dialysis because his kidneys had stopped functioning. He had lost a leg. He had had open heart surgery. he had done everything the doctors had told him to do. And his dad was a diabetic, and his dad's dad was a diabetic. And I really feel like I am not only healing this in myself, I'm healing it forward, and I'm healing it back. Like, I feel like I just feel like there are so many people who are trapped in really painful situations, who don't want to be dependent on food, who feel like they can't stop eating, people who have really high numbers, and it can be discouraging. Like, that is what I'm here to help with.
And once we figure it out and we find solutions, just as humans in general, just human nature is to want to help. Like, because you can identify, you're empathetic to the suffering because you live it. I feel that way with myself too. That's why I'm so driven to do the advanced coach training, because I'm like, there's pieces of the tools that are missing, and you can take them so much further to the, like, quicker further if you have all the pieces, if you really understand what's going on in the mind, what's going on in the brain. Like, it's not just, it's biology, neurology, psychology, it's physical, it's it's all of it. But man, the mind loves to, what's the thing? What's the one thing you did? Like, what's the thing? It's a series of things. And it comes when we can receive it. That's another thing. I've had people come through coach training who actually didn't have like that, a foundation, or didn't have an understanding. And it's almost too much to try to go in because you don't have the contrast. But if you're already doing mind body work, yoga, like just in that other world, the holistic world, then you know what you're looking for. Like, you knew what you were looking for. It wasn't like
I knew what was missing. I knew what was missing. And that was that mind body connection piece. Like, there's, people, I think that our health, like whatever's going on in our mind, physically manifests in our body, or can physically manifest in our body. And
I believe it creates our reality. Like, my belief, if you were to ask me, like, if I were to die today, this is what I died believing, is that what is going on in our beliefs, what we believe is truth, will show up in our body, in our bedroom, meaning of relationships, intimate relationships, and in our bank account. It will show up in our ability to earn, our ability to connect, and our actual physical reality. Like, that's the understanding that got me out of hell, that got me out of the suffering, right? And so many other clients, so much so that after working together, they're like, oh my God, I need this. Like, I need this to keep doing it. I need to be able to teach it so I continue to live it. I have people in my life, who need it. And that part of, like, what you're saying right now is like, that's why I'm here. It's the commitment to continue to live it that comes out through teaching, through coaching, through educating. It's the commitment. You have to do something with the commitment, right?
Right. Well, I mean,
for ourselves.
if you try to coach and you're not doing what you're telling other people to do, like, they're totally going to know it anyway. But
to continue to live it. Like, if you're like, I want to live this holistic lifestyle and live everything that I have learned in these past 2 years. It is easier to live it when you are teaching it, when you're involved in it, when you're helping other people, because we continue to learn through the process.
Correct. And I don't think we, like, everyone, whatever it is that you're trying to change in your life or transform, you are the only person who can make the choices that are necessary for those changes to happen. Like, I'm the only one who can lose weight. I'm the only one who can control what I put in my mouth, but I don't think any of us can do it alone. And I think that we grow better and we get more support in community. And I actually even think we continue to grow and evolve and sustain those changes because we're in community.
Yeah. I love in Self-Healing Masters, I'm like, it's the place to practice like your higher self. It's like, you don't get to bring in what you're not. it's a place, because it's really hard to create change and then be amongst people who the old is familiar. It's very isolating. It's very painful that I'm the only one in the group who's doing this now. Like it's like when I came up with Self-Healing Masters, it's because I had had all these coaches who came through training, and it was like, now what? They need a home, they need a platform, they need a place where they can continue to be themselves and grow, because they couldn't do that at home, or they couldn't do that in the workplace, because those people in those areas had already identified them as something else. And so I was like, bring the new you. And just the only way the past comes is if you mention it. And that helps us acclimate to the new identity. And
It
then
does.
the habits and behaviors can
Like change is really hard. Like when you're moving from this thing to this thing, it's the in-between part that's tough. And that's when some of your relationships sometimes fall away, or your habits and behaviors change. And unless you have other people who are also in that path with you, it can be a challenging thing.
I'm gonna ask you a question, if that's okay, and it may have 3 or 4 parts to it. Is that okay?
Okay.
Looking
Yes.
back, because you are now, like, you're now in maintenance, it's your new self, would you agree? It's just how you eat, it's just who you are, it's just how you behave, and it's just what you know. Does that feel
Yes.
certain? And you've played around with human design and like learning more about yourself and kind of getting into some of the characteristics about yourself. Was that helpful to learn like this whole process, learning more about you?
100%. And human design was really fun because I'm an emotional authority. I'm emotionally defined. And even now, I still have food cravings sometimes. Like I still want to eat when I'm not hungry. And I noticed that during certain times of my emotional wave, that happens. Or I guess I'm just saying I'm a human design. I have some certifications in human design too. So
So what you just said is, like, the cravings are still there, like psychologically, physically, but like that still happens. But now that I know about myself, that it's coming from when I'm in certain, kind of like someone would say about their period. Like, I know it's coming, I can tell you're saying that about the emotional wave. So it's the awareness and the understanding helps you to pivot differently. Is that what you're saying?
it absolutely does. And I also know, because I have an undefined will, the will center is about that center is about your worth and your value. And I also know when I'm like, it's interesting because when I'm around certain people, I basically I have an awareness. I understand myself better. I know how I function in relationships. I have a better understanding of what's mine and what somebody else's, and how I navigate. That information has helped me know how to navigate, because I don't think the cravings are ever going to, think about this. From the time I was 4 to the time I was 45, I was eating emotionally. I have well-worn neural pathways in my brain when it comes to overeating. You don't shift that overnight. It takes time. So I naturally notice that there are times when I still want to eat, but at the same time, like I came home from work. I have a 90 commute one way, and I had like a Tupperware thing full of cookies on the front seat with me the entire 90 minutes on the way home from work. And it didn't even occur to me to eat one. I didn't want one. So both are true. I think it's something I just have to have an awareness of. And when it's uncomfortable and I feel like I want to eat, ask myself why it is that I want to eat, and try to figure out what's happening underneath. And if there's something that I have to process that. Like I would spend years, months, hours, days avoiding an emotion that would just be over in 90 freaking seconds if I would just feel it. And instead I ate over it forever. It doesn't make any sense anyway.
No, but it's like, that's like the SOS, right? It's the rat. It's like it's like, hey, here it is. Like you literally just hold on to it for 90 seconds. But something going on up here, those old habits and beliefs. And it's when you said like from 4 years on, like basically what's the chances at this point that I wouldn't still have some sort of craving? It's for all of us, because every human is born and self-soothed through a bottle, a nipple, being held, being fed, being like it, all of us, like there's something in our brain that screams to stay alive. And then there is putting food in our mouth that sets the alarm off.
Well, and that's why change is so hard, because you're creating a new neural pathway.
Yeah.
It's like you're foraging, like the neural pathways in our brain are like grooves, right? It's like you're a prairie person with a knife just trying to like trailblaze your way through. And that's why what you can make automatic, the more automatic you can make a habit, the easier it's going to be to sustain it. Like we get up in the morning and we brush our teeth, and we normally brush our teeth before we go to bed. It's a habit. We don't even think about it. We just do it. Or we take the same drive to work every day. And so we can sort of drive that without thinking about it. If you can take your habits around food and eating and food prep and all those things and make them the more automatic you can make them, the easier they're going to be to sustain in the long term, which is why, I would plan my meals for the day, and I would have all 3 meals planned and mostly prepped before I walked out the door in the morning. So I wouldn't have to make as many food decisions throughout the day. Because when, we can get fatigued with making decisions. And when we don't have something planned is when we end up grabbing that thing that probably we wouldn't want to eat anyway. Anyway, but I also didn't exercise when I was losing my weight for that same neural pathway reason. Because if you're trying to change a habit and you're trying to change something major like food and you're not used to exercising, trying to build both of those habits at the same time can be derailing, because there's a concept called willpower depletion. And if you are putting so much of your willpower into something, trying to learn something new, you can almost sabotage yourself by trying to do much too soon. But if you already have an exercise habit, you already go to the gym, you already do CrossFit, then you're changing your food. You don't you could, but yeah, I think that we have to set ourselves up for success when it comes to changing.
And I think that's a
Trying
big
to make
reason why
major
some
changes.
people fell with the New Year's thing, because they tried to bring it all in at one time, like a new year, a new me, and 5 new habits. And we're not built that way. That's
Yeah,
like
I'm going to give up alcohol, and I'm going to give up sugar, and I'm going to go to the gym. And then we can't do it perfectly because we're human beings. And, 2 days later, we've completely given up on it entirely.
And what you just said is like, the willpower, trying to like willpower this and this and this, and then even having undefined will centers and trying to do it. Like, of course, there's going to be some fatigue. And we see the same exact thing in business. I'm going to get a certification, and I'm going to get my business started, and I'm going to make my first $100,000, and I'm going to build it like all at one time. And it's like there are steps to the process. That's why I like to use the clock. It's like, where are you in the process? So here's my question. I probably should have warned you with this. It's not hard. It just might take a little bit of thinking. And that is, now that you're on the other side of this, even though you are very well aware of how the mind and body works, and you do realize that we're going to constantly be running into things that are happening and emotions happening. So you realize all that. But at this point in time, what do you know that you didn't know? Like through like looking back, what do you know that you have certainly changed, that you didn't even know you were going to have to change, but now you know it because you're on the other side of it? And this is for you in particular. This is you. Like, these are the non-negotiables, what you know for sure.
What I know for sure is that I can trust myself. And
do you recognize that you weren't?
I didn't trust myself. And what I also know is that I like who I am. I'm not perfect, but I'm perfectly imperfect and I'm a work in progress. And I didn't really like myself then. I didn't understand myself. I didn't have an appreciation.
Mm.
Because I mean, all of us have heard it. Like you can't hate yourself into sustainable positive change, but we try. And I think, you can be not like yourself and that can be motivating, but it's not going to be motivating long term. Um, I think what I also didn't have then was discipline. And it's an ongoing struggle, but, and it's such a icky word because nobody likes to do things that they don't want to do, but it's amazing how empowering it can be and how much change is possible when you decide that you're going to do this thing. The other thing that I would say is you don't have to know how. Like my brain is like, this is another human design thing because I have an open-headed asthma and I want to know how. How am I going to do it? I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to force it. I'm trying to figure it out. And it's not about knowing how. That's not an excuse not to do something. Like anybody who's ever written a book and has never written a book before, they didn't know how to write a book. They just wrote a book. It's like you may not know how, but you at least know the one thing that you can do to make a change. And then you make that change. And then you just keep going. And when it stops working, you try something else. I guess I just thought I was a victim of it. I was a victim of all of it. I come from a family with all these diabetes people and and the doctors are telling you it's chronic and progressive. It's never going to get any better. And for the longest time, I believed them. And honest to God, it was just bullshit.
But see,
I
most people don't know that, and you didn't know that, and I didn't know that. I wouldn't have had 15 surgeries and 24 years of medication. We actually didn't know that. Like, where do you go when you have physical symptoms? To the medical community. So, and what are they taught? They're taught how to solve and how to diagnose and solve. That's it. They're not taught. Like, I don't have any ill feelings towards the medical community, even through all of my experience, because I now realize that, how we will say, like, you can't be, like, you don't have to pay the price for what you didn't know. It's like, we just didn't know. We
right.
did not know. They are not taught. How would they know? They're humans just like us. Right. So are you saying, like, I really believed everyone around me, the history of my family, the medical community, that I was a victim of diabetes. That was going to be my death. That was my sentence. Now you know different.
No, I know different. And even when I started Self-Healing Masters a couple years ago, it was there's a whole thing, like if your body isn't doing what you want it to do, it can be very frustrating. But then it's what you do with that frustration. If it's you decide, okay, like my body, I still have a non-diabetic number. Oh, well, I guess I'm going to quit. Or, I mean, I think that, it's what you do with that frustration that you feel if you like, and it's easy to give up.
Yeah. Is that something that you're using on the daily now? Because I do want to be clear with everyone that when we're talking about losing 100 pounds and taking 100 pounds off, no matter how much weight you take off and at what point of maintenance you're at, you are still a human in this world of temptation. Like, that is never going away. And because we have to eat, and some of the things that we eat create triggers, like that's always, so I'm just curious if what's front of mind when those things do come up, like, because you talk about what you know now about, like, the integration, the embodiment, the change, like the mind body disconnection, some of the things that you now question that before you just thought was truth. Mm-hmm. Which of those do you use the most?
When in normal life, you mean when something comes up?
Like, how do you use it in a practical sense? What are the things that you remember or the new awareness that you have because I call those like our, like it's like our tools. Like that phrase, that statement, that belief, that affirmation, you know.
So the tools that I use now
In the moment.
in the moment to process through whatever frustration or
I'm just curious. Like
I tap.
mhm.
I don't know if you can see me.
There's something that you tell yourself that you didn't know before. That
Oh,
you
something
don't
I
tell
tell
yourself.
myself that I didn't know before. Um,
Like we started off with what was the dialogue at the younger, you know, from the younger self. Just curious, what's the dialogue now?
the dialogue now is everything is figure outable is one I use a lot. I'm channeling my inner Marie Forleo. So that I can take the pressure off myself that I don't have to know. Hmm.
I know it's an interesting question because, but we are using it every day. Like for me, that I'm willing to be surprised. I probably use that thing 100 times a day. Like, oh, wait a minute. Like, what if I didn't have an assumption of how this could go? What if I were open to knowing something else? And
I
like,
have a coffee mug that says, "What if you could?
mm,
What if you could?" Um, because I think that's kind of where it started with me when they were telling me this is chronic and progressive, and it's going to get worse. And once you go on insulin, you're always going to be on it. Like, what if I could not have to do that? Like, what would that even look like? And if I had not had the thought, what if that isn't true? What if there could be another way? Then I would still be back in that place, 100 pounds heavier, hating myself. I probably like my husband and I had separated for a time, my second marriage, and I don't think I don't think we'd still be married. Um, it's shifted everything. When you talk about bedroom, bank account, body, it's totally true. It's totally true.
yeah. And the simple part of that is you just have to work on one, and who you are bleeds into the other. But that is really hard for the mind to understand when it thinks there's five problems. Like, I'm gonna fix
Well,
this. And it's
and there
like,
are
oh,
five problems.
actually,
If you just start on one problem, um, and you know, you were saying something about sustainable. Oh, I had a really good thought and I lost it. It was about changes and making them sustainable. It'll come back to me.
right.
This has been
Um,
fun.
yeah, well, I like to get into the things that people are sitting there thinking but not saying, and then they're judging themselves and thinking they're the only one thinking that. I'm like, no, even me, we're all thinking this. We're all thinking these things about ourselves. We're all tangled and entrapped by the stories of our past, the identity of our people, even loving us. But there's an identity that they have, a label that they have put on us in the family, in the classroom, in government, in everywheres, you know, and knowing ourselves, like the holistic approach to knowing yourself. That's what I love about human design, Gene Keys. It's like, how can I know more about myself so that I can come to trust myself? Because that was one of the first things you said is that wasn't even, you didn't even think that was an option, that you were going to have to trust yourself, that this solution was actually going to be individualized within you, which is why it's so great that you are a coach for these people, because you're not coming in there with the cookie cutter and telling them what they have to do, because you figured out
And
about
for
them.
some people, that's really frustrating because they want you to. But here's the thing: like whatever you end up doing, whatever food plan you choose, whatever protocol you decide, the structure of that, it has to be a plan that's sustainable. So if your food plan and your exercise isn't set up so that when you have a really bad day at work or you're stressed out or your finances are screwed up and you bounce checks. Like if your food plan and your exercise plan can't fit around normal life, then it's not the right plan.
Mm-hmm. Even the thought that it's going to happen faster, which is why most of us choose that other plan, even though it doesn't work for us. Because we have a thought, we have a belief that it's the one that's going to happen the fastest with the least amount of pain, right? That's like the brain's mental, the triad of what we're always trying to do. It has to be fast, right? It has to be most effective, take less energy.
And yeah, like my process wasn't fast. I wanted it to be fast. It wasn't fast. It took a year. It took a year. And it wasn't completely linear. Like it was,
yeah,
anyway.
And so that's the first one. I'm just going to repeat the ones that were most important. Trusting myself. I had to like who I am. Did you even realize that you didn't like who you were?
I thought everybody else was a problem.
Like who I am. Like, I like this body and person that moves through the world. Like, it's a big deal.
If you don't, you show up like you just show up different.
Like you're begging for someone else to like you, trying to fit in and be accepted. It's horrible. I have lots of
Don't even get me started on the people pleasing, right?
Yeah, I have lots of experience in that too. And then the discipline, like I love discipline. If I had one wish today, would be that I could help people transform the way they think about discipline. Because for me, discipline is freedom. Discipline is somewhat of control. Like discipline, I don't know. I don't have a negative connotation about it. I think it is so powerful.
I agree. When I think discipline, though, I think like, getting punished by your parents is kind of how I initially thought about it. But yeah, I believe that it is freedom. Like even knowing what I'm going to eat, my 3 meals of the day, walking out the door, that is freedom to me because I know what I'm going to eat. I don't have to make a bunch of food decisions. I don't have like it just frees my mind up to worry about other kinds of things. And some people think, oh God, that's so restricting. It's not.
Well, that's because food is something other than nourishment when we think that, right?
Right. And
It's
well,
like,
it's the
oh,
same thing with,
I need my food to be exciting. I need my food to be like fast. Because I need that could be a whole podcast.
Don't even get me started. Like if you need your food to be sexy, then maybe your life is not boring. Your life is too boring. You need to, make your life a little more exciting instead of getting your excitement from food. Like
I can 100% relate to that one. I've been battling with that with this not responding thing. It's first thing that came up was like food and wine. Like, oh, interesting. So the other one was you didn't have to know the how. The how reveals itself through the discipline, through the loving yourself, liking yourself. You're making one decision at a time. The how, it's almost a reverse engineering. Like I'm here, now I know how. But if you try to control and make the how, then it doesn't work because it's actually not the way.
which is I got it, that's a horrifying thought, not having to know how, especially
Like
for those of us
who
live in their heads.
It doesn't make sense. If I've got scarcity, it shouldn't cost me money to get out of it. I don't understand that.
That's when I'm still learning, right?
It's all the same. The way to it is through it. It's all the same. The thing
now it's just about building a business. It's like, how?
It's the next part. But I promise you, they relate. And just like everything that you just laid out about weight loss is the same for business, which is fascinating. Y'all are going to love today's call today. We have an e-school call right after this. And the other thing is there's a conversation going on in Self-Healing Masters right now about what we were talking about earlier. So it's definitely in the ethers around us, these topics. And the last one was, I actually am not a victim of my circumstance. So those are 5 great points for anyone who is on the struggle bus with weight loss or with maintenance or making the decision of where to move forward. Jenn is also available for coaching. She does specifically, which I love. I think we need to be like, what's changing in the industry, in our world in general, is we need experts in particular areas that understand particular problems. Like, I do think this is, I was talking to a friend this morning, she's in Florida, and she's like, she's in the Keys. The weirdest thing about being here, she's like, there's only one like expert, like they work just on washer and dryer. They work just on painting. They work just on, and she's like, that is just how it is. And I was like, I actually think we're moving more towards that. So with you, with weight loss and understanding their specific struggles, I think that makes you more valuable.
Well, I think so. I certainly can relate, right? I certainly can relate.
And you have so many tools. So you're not just coming from a coaching perspective, right? What are you like? What has the mind body understanding, like becoming an integrative mind body coach, how much has that like amplified you as a coach?
I can't even put into words how much it's amplified me as a coach. I mean, I came into the program already as a coach. I feel like it was the key. It's the key for me, I think, to being an effective coach. And to really helping people shift thoughts and beliefs and really transforming their lives and what they into what they want them to be. I don't think it's possible with just mindset.
Right. It's the root cause, man. When you can get the root cause and you can bring it to face, you could do anything. All right, my friend, we are out of time. I will put Jenn's links below so that you can contact her to find out about what she's doing, how to get on her email list, which I would recommend, and see how she's helping clients lose weight. And I don't want to speak for you. So if there's anything that I did not mention or ask that you want to share in the next minute, is there anything that?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, we're going to have more conversations about this. So I'd love to hear questions and feedback of what else you want to know. And we can do another show just on that topic, like we were discovering earlier. There are so many layers to weight loss, so many that we can touch on, specifically, and do like just 30-minute dial-ins on just those things.
That would be great.
Today was a great introduction. I love bringing the new coaches on and sharing their experience and having this. We don't get to have this conversation, It's like we do a lot of things together, but not at this capacity. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you.